This was no spur-of-the-moment crime. It was a meticulously planned heist. A security company called Foro was in the process of transporting a cash-filled armored vehicle when, out of nowhere, a cement truck came to a halt in the middle of the road, blocking its path. "What the hell is this?" one of the security personnel muttered, confused. Before they could react, a massive excavator emerged from behind, its mechanical arm reaching down like a metal claw. In a shocking move, the robbers used the excavator to lift the armored truck off the ground, effectively trapping it and preventing any escape. Chaos erupted as they swiftly cut open the truck's reinforced doors and tossed in stun grenades, rendering the security guards helpless. Everything seemed to be going according to plan. But what the robbers failed to notice was a boy sitting in a nearby car, frozen in shock, watching the entire robbery unfold. His hands trembled as he instinctively reached for his phone, desperately trying to call his father. But his father, H., formerly known as Patrick Hill, was already on the line, his voice thick with fear. The robbers soon spotted the boy, realizing that he had witnessed far too much. They ordered him out of the car. Terrified and confused, he obeyed, stepping out slowly before being forced to lie down on the cold pavement. As the robbers rushed to move the heavy bags of cash, one of the security guards, summoning a final burst of courage, lunged at one of the masked men, ripping off his disguise. The moment of bravery cost him his life. Without hesitation, the robber shot him dead. Realizing they had to leave no witnesses behind, the gang ruthlessly executed the remaining security guards. Then, without a second thought, they turned their guns on the boy. H, still on the phone, heard everything: the sound of gunshots, the last cries of his son, the silence that followed. Overcome with grief and blind rage, he charged at the robbers with nothing but fury in his heart. But he was no match for their firepower. He was shot down before he could reach them, collapsing to the ground as his vision blurred. Just before losing consciousness, he locked eyes with the man who pulled the trigger, his scarred face forever burned into H's memory. Miraculously, H survived. After 3 grueling months in the hospital, recovering from his injuries, he walked out with a single purpose: revenge. His first step, getting inside. He applied for a job at Robb Security, one of the leading armored truck companies. During his interview, the manager, Terry, mentioned the brutal heist, the one where 2 guards and a civilian were murdered in what he called a senseless tragedy. Despite still searching for the culprits, the police had no leads. Terry informed H that he would be replacing the fallen guards but had to first pass a firearm test. H spent the entire day training under Bullet, a veteran at the company. Though he barely met the minimum standards, he was ultimately approved for duty. His new colleagues nicknamed him H, unaware of the storm brewing inside him. He was introduced to the rest of the team, including Hollow Bob and Boy Sweat Dave, before heading out for his first assignment. The first day went smoothly, with no signs of trouble. But the following day, things took a dangerous turn. While on a routine transport with Boy Sweat Dave, their armored truck was suddenly stopped by a group of armed robbers using radios to coordinate their ambush. "Step out, now," they ordered, weapons aimed. They demanded H and Dave toss the money bags into the back of a waiting pickup truck. "Throw the money on the flatbed," one of the gunmen shouted. H complied, but not without a plan. As he lifted a bag, he deliberately let it slip from his grasp. "Oops, sorry, pal," he muttered with a smirk. One of the gunmen moved forward to retrieve it, unknowingly walking straight into H's trap. Without hesitation, H grabbed his gun and fired, putting a bullet straight through the man's skull. What followed was a ruthless display of precision. H moved like a machine, firing shot after shot with deadly accuracy, eliminating every last robber in sight. With only their leader left, H pursued him through a series of alleyways and buildings, giving him no chance to escape. He finally cornered him, and with one final pull of the trigger, ended him on the spot. H's actions didn't go unnoticed. Back at headquarters, Terry called him in for a review. Despite his heroics, Terry insisted that H needed to stay off the field for at least a month. "You just wiped out an entire crew. That's not normal. Take a desk job for now," he ordered. But while Terry was hesitant, Foro CEO Blake Halls was more impressed than concerned. "What you did deserves recognition," he said, praising H's quick thinking. "You're a real hero." Soon after, H was called in to review security footage from the first robbery, the one that changed his life forever. As he watched, his eyes fixated on one particular masked robber. He knew exactly who it was. But when asked if anything looked familiar, H shook his head. "Nothing," he lied, keeping his knowledge to himself. Meanwhile, 2 undercover agents working under an intelligence officer named Agent King had begun tracking H's movements. King believed that H's actions would eventually lead them to the real masterminds behind the first heist. Back at work, H was greeted with applause from his fellow fellow guards, who hailed him as a hero. He nodded, accepting the praise, but his mind was elsewhere. He wasn't here for recognition, he was here for revenge, and his mission had only just begun. 3 months later, Bullet and H are on a routine transport when suddenly a bicycle blocks their path. Before they can react, a group of armed men surrounds them. "Get down!" one of the gunmen shouts, deploying a smoke device to obscure their vision. Bullet is forced to step out of the truck, but when H follows, something unexpected happens. The gunmen freeze, exchanging uneasy glances before hastily retreating to their headquarters. Terry, baffled by their reaction, struggles to make sense of it. "So, let me get this straight, they just walked away?" he asks. However, CEO Blake silences him, turning to H. "You'll now have your own team. Keep doing what you're doing." Later that day, Bullet shares a cryptic remark with Boy Sweat Dave, referring to H as a dark soul, a comment that carries more weight as events unfold. That night, H pays an unannounced visit to Dana, one of the guards. Inside her apartment, he stumbles upon a hidden stack of cash. His expression darkens. He interrogates her, firing several warning shots to rattle her. Panicked, Dana confesses she had stolen the money months ago. H then pulls out 2 photos of her parents, his message clear: if she lies again, there will be consequences. The story then flashes back 5 months. H is seen spending time with his son, Dooge, who is on vacation in the United States. Their peaceful moment is interrupted by a phone call from John, formerly known as Mike, H's ex-boss and the leader of the criminal syndicate H had left behind. John offers H a chance to return for one last job. H refuses direct involvement, agreeing only to stand back 1,000 yards and provide intel. But fate takes a tragic turn. As H and Dooge stop by the docks for food, they unknowingly witness a robbery in progress. Before H can react, the unthinkable happens. Dooge is shot dead in cold blood. H himself is critically wounded, slipping into a coma for nearly 3 months. When he finally awakens, he is met with devastating news: his son is gone. His ex-wife, Jane, seethes with anger, blaming him for their son's death. Determined to seek vengeance, H reconnects with John and his associates, demanding their help in hunting down those responsible. Their search takes them deep into the criminal underworld. They interrogate one group after another, until finally, a lead emerges. A terrified informant gives up a name, a group of criminal brothers notorious for their brutality. H wastes no time. He tracks them down to a secluded building, a den of unimaginable crimes. But the brothers know nothing useful, and H eliminates them without hesitation. As he scans the area, his gaze lands on a guard. Something about him raises suspicion. H wastes no time. He has his assistant, Kirsty, retrieve background checks on the guards and the autopsy report of Dooge's murder. Meanwhile, the story shifts focus to the perpetrators of the first robbery, a team of former Afghan veterans discarded by society, led by a man named Jackson. His crew consists of Carlos, Sam, Tom, Brad, and Jan, the man who pulled the trigger on Dooge. They are seen at a party, celebrating while also planning their next heist. As the discussion turns to their previous robbery, tension rises. Sam recalls seeing Dooge at the scene. Realizing the boy had seen his face, Jan took it upon himself to eliminate all witnesses. He shot Dooge in cold blood, then turned his gun on H, leaving him for dead. But the crew is far from done. Their next target is a massive cash haul, $150 million. It's their final job before disappearing forever. Jackson and Tom meticulously go over the plan, though unease lingers. Jan's reckless actions have put them all at risk, but Jackson insists he will stay in line. The heist moves forward. The crew has an inside man, Bullet, the very guard H had trusted. On the day of the robbery, Bullet confesses to H. "They'll kill you if you don't comply," he warns. With the cameras disabled, the team makes their move. Clad in heavy bulletproof vests, they storm the truck, tying H's hands and silencing the guards. "Don't make a sound," one of them barks as they force everyone to the ground. At first, everything goes smoothly, but then, a moment of panic. A guard, desperate to alert authorities, hits the emergency button. Chaos erupts. Bullets rain down as the crew scrambles to maintain control. They blast open their hideout's doors, leaving no witnesses behind. In the mayhem, one of their own is injured. With the button finally disabled, they press on, hauling cash into their getaway vehicle. The final stage of their escape is underway, but unknown to them, H has other plans. The stage is set for the ultimate reckoning. The tension explodes as H makes his move. The moment he's untied, he eliminates Jan with brutal precision. A firefight erupts between H and the crew, with bullets flying and bodies dropping. One by one, H hunts them down, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. The surviving members, bloodied and desperate, attempt to escape, but H is relentless. He tracks them to their hideout, delivering swift and merciless justice. Jackson, the last man standing, begs for his his life. H, stone cold and unwavering, delivers the final blow. As the dust settles, H walks away, his mission complete. But vengeance has come at a cost. He is left with nothing but the weight of his actions. The story ends with H disappearing into the night, leaving behind a trail of justice, blood, and unanswered questions. As the SWAT team is alerted and rushes to the scene, still 8 minutes out, the police manage to blockade the entrance, cutting off the robbers' main escape route. Sirens wail in the distance, growing louder as reinforcements close in. Inside the chaos, H seizes an opportunity. Grabbing an attacker's gun, he swiftly shoots the man in the leg, sending him crashing to the ground. Before the man can recover, H locks him in a chokehold, holding tight until his body goes limp. Dressed in bulletproof gear, H moves with deadly precision. He spots a man loading cash into the getaway truck, forces him to remove his helmet, and examines his face. Realizing he isn't the one responsible for his son's murder, H pulls the trigger anyway. Meanwhile, Jackson's remaining team members find themselves pinned down by Dana and another guard. As the standoff escalates, Bullet unexpectedly reveals his true allegiance. Seizing the moment, he rushes over under the guise of helping, but instead executes Dana and the other guard without hesitation, their bodies collapsing in the corridor. Boy Sweat Dave struggles to stand, his body racked with pain. Terry, meanwhile, is forced out into the open, and in an instant, he's shot. As the tension peaks, another attacker appears, engaging Dave in a brutal one-on-one fight. Despite his injuries, Dave fights back fiercely, eventually gaining the upper hand and taking the attacker down for good. Just as H catches his breath, a sharp metallic click echoes behind him. He barely has time to react before Bullet fires, the shot hitting H squarely and knocking him to the ground. Bullet, believing he's finished the job, reloads his weapon and calls out to Boy Sweat Dave, assuring him that the danger is past. But the moment Dave peeks his head out, he's met with a merciless full clip, Bullet making sure there are no loose ends. Through hazy vision, H locks eyes with Jan, the man responsible for Duja's murder. The cold recognition between them lingers for only a moment before chaos erupts once more. The robbers make their escape, smashing through the barricade and ramming an armored car straight into 2 police cruisers. SWAT units and helicopters pursue them relentlessly as they speed through the streets. Despite sustaining minor damage from return fire, the crew pushes forward, eventually retreating into a secluded building and blocking off the entrance behind them. With just minutes to spare, they execute their final phase, escaping through an underground tunnel system, a secret route known only to them. Jackson, wounded after H managed to graze his neck during the firefight, stumbles forward, bleeding heavily. Before he can recover, John steps in and finishes him off, leaving no room for mistakes. Meanwhile, Jan and Bullet reach an elevator, hauling the stolen cash onto quad bikes and speeding through a maze of tunnels. After 3 miles, they emerge at their escape vehicle, ready to disappear with the loot. But then, tension snaps. Bullet, realizing that John is planning to betray him, reaches for his gun, but he's too slow. John acts first, gunning him down in cold blood. With Bullet out of the way, Jan makes his escape, vanishing into the night with the entire fortune. Days later, Jan settles into a quiet apartment, the stolen cash stacked around him like trophies of his treachery. As he finally begins to relax, a sudden noise cuts through the silence, a phone ringing from inside his bag. He hesitates, his pulse quickening. Before he can react, H emerges from the shadows, cold and unshaken, tossing a file onto the table in front of Jan. Jan picks up the file, confused. His eyes scan the pages, an autopsy report detailing Duja's death in chilling precision. Gunshot wounds to the liver, lungs, spleen, and heart. Then a photo, Duja's lifeless eyes staring up at him. The memory rushes back. The moment he pulled the trigger, the fear in the boy's eyes. A cold sweat breaks over him. H doesn't say a word. Instead, he raises his gun and fires, a shot straight to the liver. John screams in agony. Another shot, this time to the lungs. As John gasps for breath, he remembers the way Duj lay motionless on the ground, bleeding out. Another shot to the spleen. And finally, the last, to the heart. Jan collapses, his body still, his sins repaid in full. H walks out of the apartment without a backward glance. Later, he meets with Agent King, who assures him the job is done. The stolen money, King hints, may still be recoverable. But H doesn't care about the money. He's gotten what he came for. Without another word, he steps into a waiting car, another man beside him. As the engine hums to life and they drive off into the night, the weight of vengeance finally lifts. Justice has been served.